be done like 45 minutes earlier than I normally think I'm going to be. That was a very nice change after waking up to see very, very poor performance of literally every lineup. I didn't even have one break free. Like, oh, that one's not bad. I think I was off the winning lineup by like 70 fantasy points. And bless you.
Thanks.
And welcome to the NBA Strategy Show presented by Super Draft. It is Tuesday, February 11th. And as I mentioned, we've got a 5-gamer coming up today. Last night did not go well for me at all. Everything that I touched turned to crap. Those nights happen. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Adam, what's going on? How was hockey?
Yeah, it was good. The Caps lost, but the game was fun, and it sounds like it was a good thing I didn't play if my night was going to be anything like yours. So taking the night off was nice. Excited to hopefully close out the rest of the first half of the season strong.
We are coming up on the All-Star break. We get a little bit of a mental reset before the home stretch of the NBA, before it gets to be a complete farce for the final 3 weeks. And then we are slowly getting close to baseball. And I am both excited and not excited. I'm excited to play a different sport. I'm not excited the amount of work I'm going to need to put into building out my sheet for this season.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fun. It'll be fun.
During the day, though, it's less work, which is nice.
Very true. Yeah, we don't have to worry about news and, this rotation is completely different and the entire slate has changed. Right. So that's helpful. I've got last night's $15 fadeaway pulled up. Chris Middleton, the ultimate chalk. I went for 57.75 fantasy points with Giannis Antetokounmpo out. Victor Oladipo and Ersan Ilyasova were both roughly 50% owned. They both went for 22.5 fantasy points. That was better out of Ilyasova. And not as good from Oladipo, but still, passable. We're all very aware that Chris Boucher was terrible and completely bombed in 13 minutes of action. Congratulations to that one. I don't even want to talk about it. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson went for 11x, 36 fantasy points. That was the guy you needed. Christian Wood, awful. Played 23 minutes, 20 fantasy points. That did not go well. Devin Booker, 18% owned, went for 21 fantasy points. That did not go well. A lot of bombs at the top. Boucher, Wood, Booker, all 3x or below as 20% or more owned guys. That'll crater you, that's for sure. Winning lineup from last night's contest. Kyle Lowry, Damian Lee, OG Anunoby, who went for 55 fantasy points. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, Pascal Siakam, Eric Bledsoe, Chris Middleton, De'Aaron Fox. Yeah, that is 4 Raptors on a 9-game slate. Craziness.
And Chris Boucher was not one of them.
Right. And the most owned guy was not one of those guys. Damian Lee at 1.4% ownership. Nuts. Totally nuts. Bledsoe and Middleton, no surprises there. They combined for 110. De'Aaron Fox, solid 46.5. No scores that got super ridiculous at the top end. Sabonis, the high scorer, 58.5 DK points, but he was only 2.5% owned, so not all that relevant. Highest value play, obviously. OG, 3,900, went for 55. Certainly needed that one. Whoa. This can't be real. Hey, ship my money, Josh. I've cashed in exactly one of my last 865 DraftKings NBA contests, and I generally average 240 points. Is it time to quit? That is absolutely not a real question.
And if it is, the answer is yes.
Yeah, for sure. You should. I can only imagine that if you took up any other hobby in the world, you would be more successful than that. But I'm very sure that is not a real question. P, are you a Reddit guy? Looks familiar to me. Not important. I am ready to put yesterday's slate behind us and get on to today's 5-gamer. But first, got to plug a giveaway. The biggest giveaway we've ever done. Go to our Twitter account, at Osimo_com to check it out. If you guess the total amount of points in the Lakers-Nuggets game tomorrow night, you need to be following this account. You need to be following Osimo NBA. You need to have your guess in by 10 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. We're going to give away 3 one-year platinum passes. That's a $3,000 value. So make sure you do this. It's the biggest thing we've done yet. You have the opportunity to win a free 1-year pass. All you have to do is guess total points in a Lakers-Nuggets game. So go check that stuff out. And shout out to SuperDraft, presenting sponsor of this show. Go to superdraft.io, use the promo code AWESOMO, and get yourself $20 in super cash on your first $100 deposit. If you do that, you can play a method that is a little bit different. No salaries. You just go with a multiplier. Yesterday during my office hours session, which is just for our premium subs, I built a sim to find out how often a player will be one of the top 10 scorers on the slate based on my projections. I thought it was pretty interesting. If you guys want to check that video out, you need to be a premium sub. So go to osimo.com/join. Use the promo code NBA Strategy and get yourself 50% off your first week. The past 2 office hour shows that I've done have been taking a deeper look at Super Draft. So we're trying to come up with a little bit of strategy, slowly getting there. It's going to be the site that we fully dominate. We're going to get a lot of Osimo logos at the top. 5-gamer, man, and that's kind of interesting. Not a lot of value out there right now. A lot of, I'd say, like upper mid-tier plays that I think are pretty interesting. But I'm ready if you're ready.
Yeah, let's go.
Let me see if we have ownership yet. Wow, that coffee is good today.
No, it's a Damian Lillard slate. I can just not register.
He is wildly cheap on FanDuel today. We do have ownership. Let me drop that in here, and then we are set. Ooh. Steven Adams chalk night. Nothing can go wrong there. Alrighty, you ready?
Yep.
Let's do it. First game up. Luckily, it's a home game. My Philadelphia 76ers taking on the Clippers. 1-point favorites for Philadelphia. A little bit of a pace-up spot for the Sixers. God, I don't want to do this. I'm so happy this game isn't in LA. That would be so rough for me. The main 4 guys, Embiid, Simmons, Harris, Horford, all in double digits in ownership. That should come as no surprise. This is a 5-game slate. Oop, screen is jacked up. Let me move that over so everybody can see this. There we go. Just looking at it on the surface, I would say, and this does not make me comfortable at all, but 5,500 on FanDuel, 5,200 on DraftKings. I think Al Horford looks okay. I think Joel Embiid is the best option on SuperDraft. He's got a 1.15 multiplier. The guy that I like the least would probably be Tobias Harris, 6,400 and 6,200. It's a tough spot for Philly, but the extra possession should help. And actually, the Clippers' defense has been 2% below average from a fantasy perspective over their last 15 games. How do you want to manage the Sixers here against the Clippers?
Yeah, I think the pricing looks pretty good, especially if you assume that this game is going to be competitive since it's in Philly. And obviously the Clippers are a good team too. Embiid's salaries come back up, but at 9,100 on DraftKings, still underpriced for the production that you get from him on average. Obviously his consistency has been a bit of an issue this year, but if you expect around 32 minutes, he looks like my top guy on DraftKings. Simmons would be second just because, again, in competitive games, he plays so many minutes. Not the best matchup, obviously, prefer getting teams that are weak in transition and just overall weak defensively. But Simmons is still pretty cheap for 1+ point per minute guy who in competitive games plays 38 to 40 minutes. Harris, I think at 6,200 is fine on DraftKings. I'd have him third, and then Horford comes in fourth because he's not good.
He is not good. It's the price. Just I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, 5,200 is cheaper than he should be. I agree with that.
Like
It's just that, I mean, pretty clearly the fourth mouth offensively, and that's assuming that someone like Korkmaz doesn't get hot and make him the fifth option.
or Alec
Um,
Burks at this point.
right, yeah. So, I mean, Horford's gonna. I would think he gets ownership just because he's very clearly priced to his floor. It's just that with the way he's playing and the way the team is playing, I don't really know how high the ceiling is.
It's a good point. It's crazy. Like he's been bad. I just looked at it before we started the show, just because people were talking in Slack about the Sixers lineup. He's shooting 32% from three this year. He shot over 40% from three 2 years ago. If they just had 36% from three, Al Horford, it would be dramatically different for this team. But even as bad as we think he's been, still 0.92 fantasy points per minute. Not great for a big man, but it's not like he's out there like Jay Rich at 0.73, who's been just absolutely dreadful as of late. 3,700 on FanDuel, 3,800 on DK, and minimal minutes now. Still working his way back from injury. Do you expect to have anybody with like significant ownership from Philly?
Yeah, Embiid at 9,100 probably.
Yeah.
I'll probably get to a decent amount of Simmons as well.
Embiid, Simmons, and Horford all in the 20s in ownership. Harris knocking on the door at 19%. I don't really have anybody else to point out. Like, I don't think Alec Burks gets enough minutes. They've got a lot of additional dudes, and I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to find out, like, oh, Korkmaz is going to keep getting that run, because I don't expect that to happen. At some point in time, you would think Josh Richardson picks his minutes back up as we get closer, so that's just going to thin the herd a bit. It really is just those four guys for me.
Yeah, I agree. I'm certainly not going back to Korkmaz.
For the Clippers now, there's nothing here. We have Kawhi Leonard at 14% ownership on FanDuel. No one else is above 5% on either site. I don't even find $9,200 Kawhi Leonard on FanDuel all that appealing as of right now, just because of where the value lies. Montrezl Harrell is playing very, very minimal minutes, and he is now 5,600. He would be the guy that I would look at on FanDuel, but I don't get the sense that I'm going to be getting a lot of Clippers.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough with Harrell right now because um, the minutes have been down a bit. George's price tag at 8K looks pretty solid on DraftKings. So does Lou Will at 6,300, I think. But I'm with you that for the most part, they're not that appealing.
Okay. Are you anticipating getting to anything from the Clippers? Like, I'm assuming you'll have some shares of Leonard or George.
Yeah, I mean, I think that 8K for George is fine. 95 or 9,300 for Kawhi is that's not really a bad price tag either. I think that I'll probably get to a little bit of both of those guys. It makes it tougher for Harrell since normally you're gonna have one of those guys on the floor, which takes him out of it a little bit. And then this is also a matchup where potentially you could see a little bit more Zubats minutes. So I think George and Kawhi probably the two that I get to the most. Maybe sprinkling in a little bit of 6,300 Lou Will, but probably not as much.
It's a tricky game. I kind of want to watch it, but I feel like it's going to be really not fun visually. Like the Clippers or the Sixers are not a fun team to watch actually play.
Oh, yeah.
At least it's a home game.
They're probably one of my least. What did you say?
At least it's a home game, and they could actually win.
Right. I'll say the Sixers, since you mentioned it, they're probably one of my least watched teams because I just feel like I rarely roster their guys.
I expected this to be a game I had more of, and I really don't. That's it. That's all I've got here. It's just not that kind of game. Embiid for 41 on Yahoo. I do want to point that out. That's a nice price.
Yeah, it's a good price.
All right, we'll go to the Wizards and Bulls. That's probably the quickest we've ever gone through the first game.
Yeah,
but like I don't feel like we're missing out on anything.
They're both pretty easy teams to talk about because there's not really anything in terms of like secondary guys.
Yeah, it's just all or nothing for them. Responding to chat quickly. Okay, Wizards and Bulls. Wizards 3-point favorites at home. What a world. This is a weird one. There's so little value on the slate that there are pieces of the Wizards that look better to me now than I expect them to as we get closer to lock. So Beal right now, 9,800 on FanDuel, 9,500 on DK, about 10% owned. The real ownership is coming to Troy Brown, 24% on FanDuel, 17 on DK. Bertans is at 12 on FanDuel, 23 on DraftKings. I've got like a little bit of interest in guys that are not picking up any ownership. Mo Wagner, maybe a little bit of Ish Smith on FanDuel. I don't love 5,100, but he's only at 6% ownership. Matchup against the Bulls is obviously pretty good. They are not pretty good. What do you want to do with Washington? Is this just Beal for you? Do you like any of these ancillary parts?
Yeah, I do. I think Mo Wagner is really interesting. At only 4,300, played 24 minutes last game. Closed that game against Memphis. His minutes have been trending up, while Jan Mahinmi's have not. So, I don't see any reason why you don't expect like 22 to 24 minutes from Wagner again. And he's a pretty productive player at a good price tag. So I like him. Beal, of course, whenever I can get to him, I'm happy with that. But 9,500 is a perfectly fine price tag. It's just that there are some guys that I think are more underpriced than he is. Rui at 4,800 seems pretty decent, considering that he's back and playing upper 20s in minutes normally. Only played 25 last game, but had been approaching 30 before that. So I think Wagner's probably the guy I get to the most, followed by Beal and Rui.
Glad we're on the same page for that one. If Troy Brown were getting less ownership, I would like Troy Brown more, but because Wagner is not getting that ownership, that is significantly more appealing to me. I see them as mildly similar as of right now. Maybe I shouldn't. Brown has not been great as of late, and if Beal's going to be playing additional minutes, that's going to eat into Brown as well. But I'm with you. Wagner looks good. It's crazy to think about this. This is just sort of a sign of where value really is. He's my favorite center on FanDuel, relative to salary, which is just stupid. That's just how this slate is. It's Embiid, Whiteside, Adams, and Mo Wagner. There's just not a lot of options out there today. Montrezl Harrell's not real anymore. PJ Tucker is now a center, and I don't want him. It's just really gross on FanDuel today. So I'm with you on Wagner. Do you think that Napier begins to get more minutes here? I feel like that would happen if Washington was better, but since they're not, they don't need to.
They're making a playoff push.
That's not a true statement.
They're 3 games out of the playoffs.
Do I really need to look this up? They have a 7% chance to make the playoffs.
They're 9th in the East and 3 games out.
2, 3, 4, 5. They are a lot more than that, unless I'm counting wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The Nets are 24 and 28. The Wizards are 18 and 33. The Nets are the 8 seed right now. Well, I don't know if they're the 8 seed right now, but that's who they're chasing in the lowest odds. No shot. Bulls. This is for the playoffs, man. Bulls and Wizards are 9% and 7%. This is a loser leaves town match in the East.
The Magic are the 8th seed, and the Wizards are 9th, and the Wizards are 3.5 games behind the Magic.
I believe you. Those are true. Those are true statements. I can't argue with those. Not looking good in 538's projections.
Yeah, I'm just saying that.
The East
I don't think they. Huh?
The East sucks. They should not want to make the playoffs.
Right, but yeah, I'm saying and Beal is definitely putting pressure on them to make the playoffs. So
the Hawks have a 2% chance to make the playoffs based on 538. They're 15 and 40.
I think 538 might be broken.
They're projecting the Nets to make the playoffs as the 8 seed at 37 and 45. So, it's craziness. I also agree that might be broken. Do you expect to get a lot of Washington, just casting a relatively wide net?
I don't know that I'll get a lot of any one player. but I think that at least with the way value looks right now, like you said, kind of mixing and matching these guys is pretty appealing. Wagner's probably the guy that I get the most of, especially on DraftKings since he's forward and center eligible.
All right, let's move it over to the Chicago side. Chandler Hutchison, 20% owned on FanDuel. He made my contenders. Zach LaVine, numero uno in the contenders series, 23% owned on FanDuel, 34% on DraftKings. We also get Thad Young at 14% on DK, Satoransky at 20% on DK. I mean, this is a pace-up spot for the Bulls. Implied total's not the worst. I see myself getting to LaVine, Young, Satoransky, Hutch, maybe a little bit of Luke Cornett, maybe a little bit of Kobe White, but I don't want it to be the case, but I think the Bulls are mildly appealing today, even though I hate the Bulls.
I would say more than mildly.
Ugh, it never feels good.
Yeah, I mean, LaVine looks like one of the best plays on the slate to me, 8,200 on DraftKings.
That's why he was the number one contender today.
Yeah, should play 36 minutes, should have a usage rate around 32%, and the Wizards, not a good team defensively. They play fast, so all that looks great for LaVine. But a cheap Satoransky, a cheap Thaddeus Young, both not primary plays for me, but look like pretty decent values. Chandler Hutchison at 4,600, playing around 30 minutes or more since he joined the starting lineup. Usage has been up a bit as well, which is nice. So another, I think pretty decent value. And then you can obviously in tournaments take a shot on guys like Kobe White, also just because he's capable of getting hot off the bench. So like LaVine, I guess they're kind of similar to the Wizards, how I feel about them. The Wizards don't have anyone that I like as much as LaVine, but as far as the Satoransky, Young, Hutchison, Kobe White, I guess pretty comparable to the cheaper guys on the Wizards that they're going to help you out in lineups. They have pretty nice ceilings for their price considering this game has a 230 total, but like pinpointing one and saying, oh, I love this guy is pretty tough to do.
Oh man, I never get the Bulls right. Like I don't mind going to LaVine because at the very least I'm confident that he is going to shoot the ball. Right. I never feel comfortable being like, I feel like it's a Satoransky night, and then he goes 1 for 4 from the field in 37 minutes or something, and it's just like, okay, I'm never gonna get this. I'm gonna have a lot of Bulls. I assume I have more Bulls than potentially any other team. Just Bulls in like guys that I think that I can roster, not like volume. I expect that to be probably Portland. This is a really good DFS game. It's like the opposite of Sixers Clippers.
Yeah, I agree.
Favorite play in this game that isn't Zach LaVine?
Wagner?
Whew. That's a testament to what this slate looks like.
I mean, I also just really like Mo Wagner.
So do I. But like, how many minutes does he play? 22 to 24, something like that?
Yeah.
That's scary when you're just like, that's the guy. And I don't disagree with you. That's the thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you were like 5K, that like 5K is the price point where I would be like, I don't really like Wagner, but he has a ceiling here. But at 4,300, not that he can't fail, but assuming he plays at least like 20 minutes, you assume he's going to come in at least around like 5X.
You would think. I hope so. Move on to Pelicans, Blazers, 121.25 implied total for the Pels, 118.75 for the Blazers. These are the number 1 and number 2 implied totals for the slate. Massively fast game as well. The big piece of information here, I like Brandon Ingram quite a bit if he plays. I like Zion quite a bit. Number 2 power forward on FanDuel for me. I think he's a little overpriced on DraftKings. Still picking up mad ownership. 41% on FanDuel, 27% on DK. I had a couple people asking me about Zion earlier today. He comes in 15th in the contenders. Just not ranked high enough on DK. I'm cool with Drew, although he's getting a bit of ownership on FanDuel, 23%. Lonzo at 29%. And this could all open up even more if Brandon Ingram ends up out. How are you looking at the Pelicans today? What stands out to you, whether you have Ingram in or out?
Yeah, I mean, they obviously look really, really appealing. But if Ingram is in, he looks really good to me at only 7,500 on DraftKings. It's, the highest total on the slate. It's a terrible Portland defense. He's been kind of neck and neck with Zion for the most usage since Zion came back. So if he's in, I like him, and I like Zion. I think 7,400 is fine on DraftKings. I would assume, 30 to 32 minutes. He's averaged a little over 1.2 points per minute this season and gets a favorable matchup. If Ingram's out, I would think even more usage goes to Zion and he becomes even more appealing. As far as Drew goes, if Zion and Ingram are in, I think he's a little overpriced for me. The salary jumped because of his last game when they were both out, and he has taken a hit in terms of usage when both of those guys play. So I think he's really dependent on the other two. Derek Favors also dependent on them because we've seen Favors lose minutes when Zion's in, since frequently they're closing with uh, Josh Hart over Favors. So I think that or assuming Zion's in, and if we assume they're both in, it's tough to give Favors more than I think 24, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
If Ingram or Zion are out, I think that Favors is most likely in the closing lineup, which means you can give him back to, get him back to 28 to 30 minutes, which at 5K would make him look like one of the best plays from the team.
I'm with you there, man. There's so many minutes to go around if Brandon Ingram sits out of this game, that especially and in what should be like a track meet. I love it. I'm trying to see if there's any prices that I think are going to stand out majorly if somebody ends up out. Man, Drew Holiday at 7,900 is just a massive price tag. Also, play Zion on Super Draft, 1.6x multiplier. Craziness. They're not going to bring that one down. I think everybody's just supposed to roster Zion. What do you think of him being 41% owned on FanDuel as of right now?
What'd you say his salary was?
He is 7,200. That's $100 more than LaMarcus Aldridge, $1,300 cheaper than Jason Tatum, for reference.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah.
I think it's fine.
Yeah,
I'd probably just play even more of him.
Yeah, I think he's the best play on FanDuel from the Pelicans, and I have Brandon Ingram in. So it will really open up if Ingram ends up out. And then we get to Portland. Gonna have a lot of this. Lillard, Whiteside, McCollum, Melo. I see all of these guys looking fantastic. Massive pace up spot for Portland. They gain, 5 possessions over their normal output. Dame, Whiteside, Melo, all in the contenders. McCollum was 11th. If I'm trying to rank all of these guys, you can check out the contenders video. They are in order. How do you feel about this Blazers team from a DraftKings perspective? Is 10-3 too much for Dame for you?
No, finally really like Dame here. I mean, obviously, I still think that it's a little high for his medium projection, but against a Pelicans team that over the last month is playing at the second fastest pace, they've gotten even faster with Zion, as you would expect, and they're not a good defensive team either. Especially if you look, Dame, one of the most frequent pick and roll ball handlers in the league. For the season, the Pelicans have allowed the 6th most pick and roll possessions per game. They also rank in the 10th percentile in efficiency defending the pick and roll. So sets up is just a phenomenal spot for Dame individually, even aside from the fact that it should be a fast-paced game and all of that. So I really love Dame here. Finally won't make fun of people if they play him at 10-3. I think he looks really, really good. Whiteside looks good at 8,100. You're still talking about, 1.3 to around a 1.3 fantasy point per minute guy in a pace up spot. So he's appealing. Melo's salary is really cheap. Played 33 minutes last game, even though he didn't even close. They closed with Gary Trent over him. But knowing that you're going to get 33, 34 minutes from Melo in this game at 4,900 makes him, I think, look like a really good value as well. And then I would say McCollum is like the 4th guy for me, but he's a good option too.
Yeah, I guess we should touch on oh God, I'm gonna miss on both of them. No Nasir Little, no. Who the hell else is out?
Simons is probable.
Yes, Simons is probable coming back off of that concussion. No
Is Hazonia out?
Oh yeah, no Hazonia as well. So we might see Wenyen Gabriel, pick up a couple minutes. or they could just end up playing Gary Trent 35 minutes. He
Yeah,
is.
I mean, if he shoots 8 for 11, that will probably happen again.
Yeah. On FanDuel, we've got Dame at 9,800, Whiteside 8,800, McCollum 64, Melo 52. Do any of those prices stand out more or less to you? I know that's probably a lot to take in.
Yeah, I'm just flipping over to their pricing now so I can see it. But Dame looks great at 9,800.
Yeah.
And then I would say that McCollum, Whiteside, Anthony all look like good options, but relative to each other, they all look pretty similar.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to not have, probably two Portland dudes in every lineup. Like that, they all stand out so much. And with CJ and Melo being 6,400 and 5,200, you could pretty much make that work in any construction you're looking for. And then I'll probably have a little bit of Trevor Ariza as a value option. This is the kind of game that's pretty good for him.
Agreed.
Favorite play in this game?
If Ingram is out, then Favors. If Ingram is in, then Dame.
Okay. And that's from a DK perspective, obviously. On FanDuel, I would say that my favorite play, regardless, is Dame. And if Brandon Ingram ends up out, I mean, there's a non-zero chance it ends up Zion.
Yeah, I think that Ingram, Zion, and Dame are close for me. Like if Ingram's in, as my top guy.
The $4,900 price tag on Melo on DraftKings is so appealing, but seeing him already at 27% ownership makes me nervous.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of it's a good play, but you just kind of have to keep in mind that what his situation is. I mean, he's around the 21% usage guy when they're all healthy. You have McCollum ahead of him in usage. You have Dame obviously ahead of him in usage. You have Whiteside grabbing the rebounds. You have the risk of Gary Trent shooting him off the floor. So it is what it is. Like he's underpriced for this game, but it's kind of like we talked about with Horford. He's underpriced, but he is also the third or fourth option on the team, depending on what you want to call Whiteside.
Yeah, that's really the problem there, and that's what gives me pause. Once everybody's already there, I feel like I'm not wringing out any of the value. All right, guys, we are 3 games in. This is a pretty easy slate to talk about, so please hit the like button. That helps us out more than anything. You guys are here. It's easy. Just hit the thumbs up. It's good stuff. Follow us. Follow this YouTube channel. Follow us everywhere. Follow us on Twitch. Follow our Awesemo_com Twitter account. And hit the notification bell so you know when we go live, or if we post any other additional videos. We got a lot coming up today. I want to make sure I touch on it. Alex's game plan stream will be free today. That will be at 4 p.m. Eastern time. That'll go out to everybody. The NHL Live blog is free, and the PGA Above the Cut article is free. At 2:30 Eastern time, Ben Rasa and Tim Frank will be breaking down the Genesis Open. I think I'm getting that right. I'm almost positive it's the Genesis Open, but whatever it is, they're doing a golf show today at 2:30. Same golf show they always do. At 4 p.m., we'll also have Jake doing the NHL Strategy show, the deeper dive. Adam, you will be back with Laffy, and then we'll have Live Before Lock, 6 p.m. Eastern time, taking you all the way up until 7. That's what we've got going on for today. So again, hit that like button. Let's move to OKC. Thunder and Spurs. Thunder are 6.5 point favorites against San Antonio. We'll start on that OKC side. Steven Adams, chalk play today on FanDuel, 5,200. He is 46% owned. SGA, Paul, Gallo, all in like the 15 to 20% range. Gallo a little bit more than that on DraftKings at 5,800. What stands out to you from the Thunder?
Nothing really. I mean, Adams looks okay. Gallo at 5,800 looks okay. The main four, Paul, Gilgeous-Alexander, Adams, and Gallinari all I think look like good options, but not guys that I would really be prioritizing over other players we've talked about from the first 3 games.
I really like Gallo on DraftKings. That's a nice 58 is nice.
Yeah, I'll say he's my favorite out of the group.
Yeah. Honestly, SGA for 67 is not that bad either. These prices are flipping, man. SGA is 7,600 on FanDuel, 6,700 on DraftKings. Paul is cheaper on DraftKings. Gallo is cheaper on DraftKings. Schroeder is cheaper on DraftKings. We're getting back to the beginning of the season.
Getting back to how we should be.
Maybe that means that I'm going to start playing better again. I'm going to get a lot more OKC on DK, in particular SGA and Gallo. On FanDuel, I think we need to talk a little bit about Steven Adams Chalk Night. 5,200, but 46% owned. What are your thoughts on rostering someone like Steven Adams on this slate at that price tag, given that ownership?
I think that there's probably an edge in going to other spots. Whether it's saving $1,000 and going to Mo Wagner, or just getting a completely different roster construction and going to either Embiid or Whiteside. I think that because the thing with Adams is, yeah, he can have a big game, obviously, but it's more of he's getting that much ownership because the position is weak and the pricing at the position isn't great. So that's a big reason why he's getting that ownership. It's not like it's that something really changed. You're most likely going to get somewhere in the 28 to 30-minute range for Steven Adams. There's no double-double bonus on FanDuel. He's still going to be, the fourth highest usage guy behind the guards and Gallo, or fifth highest usage guy behind the guards and Gallo. So to me, it's just the ownership is more a product of he looks better than everyone else compared to Steven Adams is in a great spot and a great play.
Yeah. I just see it like this. If Steven Adams is 46% owned and Mo Wagner is 4, I'm just going to play Mo Wagner and hope for the best.
Right, I agree.
It's not like I have Steven Adams hitting a target score at like some preposterous rate. I think it's just easier to go to Mo Wagner there. Now, I would say there's not a lot to pay down for, but if that relationship is 46-4, it's just easier. And I think that I win a lot more often if I make that sort of move. Doesn't make Steven Adams a bad play. I would certainly go straight to Steven Adams in a cash scenario if that's where I was building, but in a GPP, it's too much for him. On the Spurs side, what do we know about DeMar DeRozan?
Late scratch yesterday with back spasms. Haven't seen anything new today.
Yeah, I put him in for right now. DeMar DeRozan, not the type of guy that like misses a lot of time. So I put him back in, and at that point, I have some interest on FanDuel. Got a day off, which is nice. 7,200 on FanDuel, not the worst price in the world. I'm assuming that we're projecting him out because we've got Aldridge at 40% ownership, DeJounte Murray at 36 on FanDuel, Lonnie Walker at 40 on FanDuel and 60 on DK. Bryn Forbes, Trey Lyles picking it up a little bit. What do we do with these Spurs? I think we need to talk about it in both ways. DeRozan in, DeRozan out.
Yes, I mean, if DeRozan's in, I think that DeRozan looks fine at 7,200. He should play, around 34 minutes, assuming he's healthy and that the game stays competitive. So that's not a bad price tag there. 6,700 on Aldridge would be fine, but I would prefer Gallo for 5,800 on the other side. And then beyond that, you'd basically just be throwing darts with guys like DeJounte Murray and Derek White. They both have upside at their prices, but their median outcome is pretty mediocre for their salaries. So you're kind of just hoping to get lucky and be on the right side of variance if you roster one of those guys. If DeRozan's out, then obviously it opens up a ton because it opens up more usage for someone like DeJounte Murray. It opens up more production for LaMarcus Aldridge. It opens up a bunch of minutes for Lonnie Walker, who got the start yesterday, played 27 minutes. If you're going to get 27 minutes from Lonnie Walker at min salary, he's going to probably be the best value on the slate, and that's why you would have as much ownership as we have projected right now. So obviously a lot depends here on DeRozan, and the impact is basically that if he's in, you get a few secondary options in the context of the entire slate from this team. If he's out, you're going to get some of the highest owned plays, and for good reason.
Yeah. If he's in, I have very little interest in most of these guys. And if he is out, all hell just breaks loose.
Right.
Because this is a team that desperately needs those additional 34 minutes to scatter around to everybody to bring them all up into playable territory. And that's where it gets really scary. So let's say DeMar DeRozan is out. Who would you expect to be your most popular Spur?
Lonnie Walker.
Okay. flat minimum. That'll probably do it. Who do you think?
I would say
Who do you think is
Lonnie.
the actual biggest benefactor from this? Like, obviously, we're playing Lonnie Walker because he cuts a couple extra minutes and he is $3,000. But who do we think really gets the biggest impact from DeMar DeRozan not being on the floor?
Lonnie Walker.
Okay.
Because he goes from like 16 minutes to 28.
Okay. Do you think this opens up additional offense? I mean, it obviously does, but like from a playmaking perspective, do we think this makes a big jump for DeJounte Murray, Derek White? Like, have you looked into like the on-off stuff yet for the Spurs?
I'm looking at it right now, or pulling it up right now. With DeRozan off the floor and Aldridge on the floor this year, because obviously we're assuming Aldridge plays a bunch of minutes regardless. DeJounte Murray's played 97 minutes. He's averaged a fantasy point per minute. Derek White's at 133 minutes. He's averaged 0.94 points per minute. So those are both pretty much in line with what they normally do. The big thing is that Aldridge has averaged 1.35 DraftKings points per minute without DeRozan.
Wait, did you say 1.5?
1.35.
Oh, okay. I mean, even still, that's a pretty high number. 1.5 would have been staggering. And yet still would have been like 0.35 off of Giannis's normal pace.
Right.
Which is crazy. Crazy.
My friend I went to the Caps game with last night, he asked me like who the best fantasy basketball player was. And I was like trying to describe to him like how much better Giannis was than everybody, and it was pretty tough.
It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Like, it makes me wonder what his price would be if he played legitimate minutes, because I don't think that his efficiency would change all that much. Over the past 30 days, Giannis Antetokounmpo has the highest fantasy points per minute rate in the entire league. I don't even have to set a minutes filter. There's not even some random 3-minute moron ahead of him. He has scored 605 FanDuel points in 309 minutes. He is at 1.96 FanDuel points per minute over the past 30 days. That is higher than every single person that has seen the floor, no matter how low the playing time is. Kawhi Leonard is the next closest of anybody that has a pulse. 1.68. It's like 0.3 of a point. That's insanity.
Yeah, it's insane just how productive he is.
It's insanity. Oh, God. Okay, favorite play in this entire game from DraftKings. Let's assume DeMar DeRozan is in.
DeRozan? Wait, from the game?
Game.
Gallinari.
Okay, I agree. How would you hash out SGA and DeRozan if DeRozan is in?
I think it's really close. I'd give a slight edge to DeRozan.
Okay. If DeMar DeRozan is out, is it the answer just Lonnie Walker?
For the highest owned guy in the game?
Yeah.
Yeah, Walker and then Aldridge.
Okay. All right. Late night hammer, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Houston Rockets, Boston Celtics. Rockets 2.5-point favorites. Eric Gordon out for the Rockets. Otherwise, I think this game has everybody that should be playing. We'll start on the Houston side. Neutral pace matchup. James Harden, 11-3 on FanDuel, 11-4 on DK. He's at 33% ownership on FanDuel, 18 on DraftKings. Westbrook, 10-1 and 99. He's about 30% owned. Robert Covington, 26% owned on FanDuel, 42% owned on DraftKings. And then Daniel House, 11% on FanDuel. Let's start with the two main guys, James Harden, Russell Westbrook. How are you hashing those guys off?
I really, really like the $9,900 price tag on Westbrook. Harden, I think, is whatever at 11-4. But Westbrook, we've seen the usage come up even alongside Harden over the last couple of months. He's taking on a bigger role. I think that the new lineup for Houston should benefit Westbrook with more spacing and making it easier for him to get to the rim. So I love Westbrook at 9,900. Again, if value opens up and you can get to Harden at 11-4, that's fine. He's probably, he's very likely to be the highest scorer on the slate, but I don't think I'm going to be making an effort to jam him into lineups when you have really, really high upside guards for less in guys like Westbrook and Dame and Beal, amongst a bunch of others.
Yeah, I think Harden is a bit of a tough sell today. Do you like Russ more than Dame?
No.
Okay. Dame 10%.
They're close.
Dame 10% owned. Russ 33 right now.
I'll take Dame.
Yeah. I mean, I like Dame before I even hear those numbers.
Right,
so
exactly.
It's even better.
I think that they're really close, and I'd give a slight edge to Dame if I'm not considering ownership.
Right.
Once you factor those in, it's even better.
Thoughts on 42% owned Robert Covington?
It seems. Is that on DraftKings?
Yes.
It seems high.
5,200 is a nice price tag.
Yeah, it is. I don't think it's half the field should own him.
I agree. We have another guy that's 5,200 today. That's half as owned. Who'd you rather have, Robert Covington or Al Horford? Tricky.
Horford. They're like the same. I kind of view them in the same light where 5,200 is cheap for like their median outcome, but the chances of either of them having a monster game aren't really that high.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to go to one of them, I would rather just take the one that's lower owned.
I completely agree. You want anything else from Houston? House, Tucker, increased minutes for McLemore with Eric Gordon out?
Hey, Tucker's finally priced back where he should be at 4,400.
Oh, he's not a 6K guy?
Yeah, I'm surprised that didn't last.
I started to think that we were adding salaries together over 2 days or something.
Right. No, I mean, if you get to a little bit of PJ Tucker, playing 36 minutes at center, that's fine. But I'm never really going to advocate for PJ Tucker. So Westbrook is the number one guy here. Harden, if you can get to him, then great. Covington would be, I think, a good play as well. But I just think he's overowned if he's 40%.
PJ Tucker, 0.58 FanDuel points per minute over his last 30 days in comparison to Giannis's 1.96. That's 3.4 times as much. You can run.
It's crazy too. Like the usage doesn't really change if he's playing center. It doesn't really change if Harden's not playing. It doesn't really change if Westbrook's not playing. He just is what he is.
Yeah, I feel like we could hard code that in to be like, we're just going to skip the calculation of PJ Tucker, just assume that he doesn't do anything different. How valuable is PJ Tucker in the NBA? This is outside of a DFS question. Like,
I have no idea.
It's kind of nuts to me.
Like, I mean, I assume he's valuable.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's just how many people think that he probably is like the worst thing in the world?
Oh right, yeah. I mean, just because. Like I'm very well aware that I view everything through a DFS lens, and I don't really know anything about actual basketball, but I'm aware of that. And there are definitely people that just think everything correlates entirely, like, which is why people didn't understand why Robert Covington's valuable and stuff like that. So, I mean, Tucker for sure a better NBA player, a much more valuable NBA player than DFS.
I think it's really interesting too. This PJ Tucker at the center experiment is going to be amazing for the Zion at the 5 for the rest of his career love, because this is Zion is basically just like the greatest version of PJ Tucker in the history of the world. 6'6", but can play center, only a freak athlete and actually talented offensively. Scary. We'll go to Boston now. I can't imagine avoiding these guys. This is a spot where their price tags on FanDuel are significantly better. Massive pace-up spot for the Celtics. Tatum, $100 more expensive on FanDuel, but Kemba is $600 cheaper. Hayward is $600 cheaper. Jaylen Brown is $700 cheaper. I love Walker, Hayward, and Brown. I don't mind getting to Jason Tatum at all on FanDuel either, but I really like those 3 guys on FanDuel in this spot. On DraftKings, prices are a little elevated, but I still want to get to them if they are, and this is in order, Tatum, Walker, Hayward, Brown, 2, 3, 1, 2% owned. How do you want to manage the Celtics today?
Yeah, if they're that low owned, they become appealing. I think the DraftKings pricing on these guys is really, really tight. And for the most part, this slate, the pricing isn't that tight. So it makes sense for their ownership to be really low. And you have to understand that, yeah, they are good contrarian plays because it is a pace-off spot for Boston. They are very good players, and there's a chance that one of these guys really does go off. But there is opportunity cost to rostering them because, for example, $8,400 for Jason Tatum is fine. He can go. He can still go for 50 points. But with the team fully healthy, that's going to happen less often. And across positions, you could just roster an $8,200 Zach LaVine. So it's like if you're making that overpay, and not only do you need to be on the right side of variance with Jason Tatum having that game, but then you also need these clearly better plays to fail and Tatum to beat them. So, I think the low ownership makes sense given the pricing relative to other options on DraftKings.
I think it's a little interesting to see. Like, I like Ben Simmons today. He's at 28% ownership. I think if I were making an optimal lineup, I wouldn't hate pivoting to Jason Tatum instead of Ben Simmons to get a slightly more unique lineup.
Right, and I agree, and I think that's where on DraftKings most of the appeal is for Boston. We talk a lot about even if you're playing 150 lineups, you're not looking to necessarily have a super contrarian player pool.
Yeah.
It's more you're trying to have lineups that are unique and that give you a clear edge over the field. And one way to do that, and I think it's something that's really important, is especially in NBA, since projections are more accurate than other sports, it's normally going to be that you have a pretty chalky lineup with one or two low-owned guys that have high upside. And so that's where I think these guys come in, mixing a Jason Tatum in over a more popular player in that price range in a specific lineup where you have a lot of popular plays gives you a really good lineup.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would want to look at it and be like, oh, wow, nobody's going to play Jason Tatum. Let me jam in 40% and just hope he breaks the slate or something.
Right. And I think this fits for everybody on Boston. All four
Right.
of these guys are not getting owned. But if you have a lineup that has, let's see, where Gordon Hayward is 6,900. If you have a lineup that has, I don't know, let's LaMarcus Aldridge at 41.7%. Obviously, that's going to be dependent on DeMar being in, but just like one quick swap and you can get to Gordon Hayward, or drop down to Jaylen Brown, and you have a wildly different lineup that no one else is going to have. And the odds of those guys like outscoring each other are what, like 65-35 at worst, but they're getting 40-1 on their ownership. Those are the spots. And those are the things that I think Alex does, very, very well in his lineup construction. And 5 games up, 5 games down. That went pretty quick. Hit me with your top DraftKings plays for today.
Dame, really, really love Dame. Zach LaVine, Zion, if Ingram's out, I think Zion jumps up there. Westbrook looks really good. Trying to find value. I like Wagner quite a bit as far as value goes. Melo looks good.
Tricky slate.
Yeah. Favors if Ingram's out. I forgot about him.
Okay. On FanDuel, for me, Kemba Walker, Lonzo Ball, Damian Lillard at point guard. At shooting guard, CJ McCollum, Zach LaVine, Drew Holiday. Potentially DeMar DeRozan if he's in. Small forward, Jaylen Brown, Chandler Hutchison, Melo, Gordon Hayward. At power forward, I'm looking at Thad Young, Daniel Tice, Al Horford, Zion Williamson. And then at center, Mo Wagner, Hassan Whiteside, Steven Adams. Fade that Steven Adams chalk. But that's it, guys. 5 up, 5 down. Adam, anything else?
I'll be back at 5 with Lofty. Hopefully we will have some DeRozan news or something.
Yeah, we're going to need something to break this one up. So, best of luck, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Go check out the Contenders video. Get them views up. And we'll have more content throughout the day. Check out the PGA Strategy show at 2:30. That'll be next. Best of luck, guys. Talk to you tomorrow.